Stefanie. Hi, Stevan. Nice to have you on this video.
Thank you for having us.
We have done a few already videos with both of you, but I think many people may not know you well. So I start with Stefanie. Maybe you can say a few words about yourself, and then we'll pass it on to Stevan.
Sure. I am Stefanie Drysdale. I am a senior VP of cyber at a company called Prescient, based in Chicago. We do cybersecurity and global investigations, among a few other really cool things.
Thank you so much, Stefanie, for being here. To you, Stevan.
Steve Bernard. I'm actually going into my 6th year of my business that I launched in 2018 after I retired from Sony Pictures Entertainment. And for the purposes of today, I'll just mention that at Sony, I had a converged model. I actually had the InfoSec, the cybersecurity, investigative services, forensics, and what have you under my remit. And I'll talk more about that later. But happy to join both of you.
Well, thanks to both of you. And I should mention that we have done a video with Stefanie about one of the products she's promoting, which I think is particularly interesting, which is the executive data protection. So that will come out anytime soon, and you will find the link in the show notes. So make sure that you watch this one, because it's a quite unique product, especially if you are in charge of protecting senior management, or you are in senior management. I think it's worthwhile. And we have done a couple of videos with Stevan, one about himself, one about resilience, one about the North Korean attack, and I think any day soon we have done one about physical security. So I would encourage everybody to have a look at these videos, and I think there is a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom to be gained. But today our focus is essentially, the topic is women in cybersecurity. While preparing this video, we were saying, well, it's kind of a man's profession originally, and we're trying to do our part to have more women join us. And on the other hand, we have data protection, which seems to attract more women. So it seems to be, we have a little divide. Maybe soon we'll have to have videos about men in data protection. But our focus here is not about that. Our focus is, on the other hand, to attract and hopefully motivate as many women as possible to try their career. And obviously, we want to know from Stefanie how her career journey was, and what obstacles she had to overcome, and so that we can see, if I'm young and I want to get in that profession, what can I face or how to overcome it. But before we do so, maybe we have, each of us, men, I should say, have had our own share of experiences. Maybe Stevan, you just shared a few things. Maybe you can tell us.
In '83, I left law enforcement to go into the private sector and corporate security. At that time, it was far from a profession. I'm happy to say that today it has evolved into an essential function, if you will, in business. What I've also seen evolve and change in a very positive way, but not in an easy way. That women are now not only having an interest in this area, but they're bringing leadership skills and experience. They're having a seat at the table, and I didn't always see that. It took a long time, and I think it's going to be really interesting today to hear from Stefanie about, the struggles early on of how did you get to where you are, and what advice you have for others that may be in a similar position.
Well, I had a similar experience when I was the global CISO for Sony Electronics in Singapore. And my team size was about 160, many different departments. But I had a personal goal, to make sure that every single department had at least one woman among the team. Some had more, but some, it took me a long time. I think it took me 5 years to finally have every single department having a woman. So I since then, I would say I'm an activist behind that cause. So I'm so happy to have Stefanie here, and hopefully not me telling stories, but Stefanie telling her story to inspire others to join this field. Maybe you can share us a bit how you decided to go in cybersecurity, and how you found your path, and maybe obviously everybody wants to know how easy or difficult it was, and if there were obstacles, how did you manage to overcome?
I think for me, I said this before, it's a very happy accident that I ended up in cyber. It was never a goal. I never grew up and said, God, I can't wait to go into cyber. And at the point where it actually started to happen, I don't even think we as a company knew we were going in that direction. So I think that the main theme was just being open to where it led and following a passion. And that is something that, regardless of how many people that look like you see in a room, is really important to not let the room deter you from something that you find really fascinating or really interesting. For me, I was approached by a headhunter to come help this cool startup launch a product that they had at the time, introduce it to industry. And throughout that, I made a lot of contacts in corporate security and in leadership. And once that was divested and we pivoted into cyber, that's how I found myself there. So none of it was intentional and none of it was planned, but I found a passion for it. And there was a lot of complexity, a lot of merging of different schools of thought, and no 2 days are ever the same in this industry. So I think to that point, it kept me captivated. It kept me interested and invested. And it still does.
I've known Stefanie for several years now, and watched her grow and mature in this space, and it's been fun to watch. But I think one of the things too that has made you successful, you said it a moment ago, is, I mean, you're kind of a marketing person for the company as well. I think you certainly promote the brand and the offering, if you will, and I think that's been great. But the other thing that you do, and I think everyone can do this, is you establish a network of global professionals in this space, and you nurture it and you build it and develop it and grow it. And you do it because you like other people, right? It's not, because I'm trying to win business. Yeah, that comes with it. A lot of people, I think, today don't really understand the power and the benefit and the fun that comes with that. Want to comment on it?
First of all, thank you for that generous compliment. I think for me, even though, part of what I have done leans into the sales or marketing space, I take offense if that's what it's relegated to, because it is so much more than that. I've spent a lot of time educating myself and learning the industry and learning the space and building relationships, to your point. For me, it's a deep investment, not only in the company, not only in what we're doing, but how it benefits the industry as a whole. So for me, it is very holistic. I have really taken a lot of pride in the generosity that my network has given me and the trust that's been placed in me. So for that, to your point, I don't think about it as a transactional business. It is absolutely relationship based. We talk. The conversations like the one we're having today are the things that help us shape the direction that we go in the future. That has made Prescient a stronger company, and it definitely, has given me a lot of purpose within this space, even though, again, I don't look like a lot of the people that I spend my time with.
Another thing that you're really good at, and you do it every week, you're very focused on where is all this going? Because in cyber, as we know, you can't keep up with it. You hope to kind of keep on par with it, but it's moving so fast, and it can be overwhelming to people, right? And I think, I'll just go ahead and give you a plug. Stefanie has a weekly broadcast on LinkedIn, and she provides current information on things that are happening that we need to know. And so if that's the space that you work in, be sure to do that as well. It's really important.
Yeah. And for that space, the whole point was we saw so many people that tried to offload cyber onto someone else, right? That's IT's problem, or that's not my problem, or I don't understand it. It's too complex. The goal really was to help show everyone that if you're touching a device, that cyber is your expertise as well, or at least, you have to have some strong knowledge. And we tried to do that in a way that made it relevant to everyone so that they can participate in the conversation and they can be their own advocate, and they can actually help protect themselves, make their CISO's job easier or the CSO's job easier. We work with a lot of executives. And so my goal is, yes, you have to do this other job that's really, really important. But meanwhile, we have to keep you safe. And part of that is the information that you are entrusted with and the goals that you're setting. We want to make sure that you have a clear path and you can think about those things and not, get caught up in, the weeds of cyber, but still understand how you're participating with it.
Would you say that, you just explained that because of this transformation when you joined the startup, you said the startup finally pivoted to a certain direction and you moved into finding an area which was new by itself. I mean, I come back to the main theme. Was that then a natural evolution? It was not like you were part of a growing thing. You didn't have to penetrate a man's world. It was you built something which wasn't there before in the same way. Well, that made that thing. I mean, it's never easy to make something new.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Why was it easier as a woman? Because there was no established order in some sense, and hence you could establish naturally or more naturally your space. But I think I'm simplifying your life a little bit too much, so I want to get your opinion.
Yeah, no, it's not an oversimplification. The things I would say that are easier for me is in a sea of men, obviously I don't blend in. So remembering me might be a little bit easier than remembering, 20 other people that you met that day that might have similar backgrounds or a similar affect. The thing with cyber that's really cool, and it starts from a thing that's not cool, is the skill shortage. So because there is a skill shortage, I think cyber was a little bit quicker to break the mold in terms of what a cyber professional looks like. There's a lot more diversity in that space. You have people with different educational backgrounds. You've got people that are self-taught, people who spend time in their basement. They're gamers, they're witty, they're clever, they have purple hair, they have, you've got all of these different things. And in cyber, you can't afford to be exclusionary. You have to say, hey, if this person has this very unique skill set, then we need them. And you don't really have a lot of time to say, well, you didn't go to the same school as we like, or you didn't, look the same way, or you didn't follow the same path. And in that way, I benefited from the cyber industry being more willing to overlook, the normal template that people would hope to see. The problem I think that corporate security still has in some spaces is people hiring people that look like them. They came up through the same ranks, they had the same background, they had the same education, we know the same people. Those are lovely. And it's wonderful to have that kind of built-in trust. But it's also very limiting in including people who actually could kind of break the mold and make you think outside of what you're normally trained to think. That's the beneficial part of it. As far as the downside, obviously there are many downsides to being in an industry where you don't look like what people expect you to, and some people are very steeped in a culture that my value does not have a lot of weight with them, because of either my background or they get distracted by the physical aspect. So those things still happen to this day. And I don't expect that will change, because it's a reflection of the outside world and not just the industry.
I noticed also that some women which were in my team had, especially as security grew out of a technical cost into more, outside or more corporate world or management. Suddenly also not only technical skills were required, but many female members, they were women in my team. They had much more subtle political skills than their men team, which were more technically oriented. But as we grew in terms of more having to do with management and the company direction in general, we noticed that a number of skills were required. These were not typically found in a group which grew out of a technical background. I think certainly the political sense. Many of the women in the department abroad was essential, because we're change managers. We have to influence people, we have to convince people, we have to demonstrate ourselves or explain ourselves, and I think this was great. But I think I like very much your comment that we typically like to recruit people who are copy ourselves sometimes. Yeah. We don't try to new things. So that is of course a handicap in some ways. I also noticed that it was a bit different by countries. Yeah, you will find more women in some countries and less in others. We had more women in security in India, for example, than in other places. So it was also culturally not 100% equal. Are there other women in your team which had a similar path, or they had to go in a different way?
I think, everyone has their own path, but first and foremost, I wouldn't work with a team that didn't prioritize diversity in all its forms. I think it's very important to have that diversity of thought. And to your point, have people that have those hard skills for sure, but also have those soft skills. We have to communicate. Part of the obstacle with cybersecurity in particular is not being able to communicate what we do to leadership, not being able to help understand the initiatives and the direction and the resources needed. And, again, not to go too gendered in this, but those soft skills and those abilities to communicate in a way that matters to the listener, that's a huge part of cyber actually making progress within any organization. So I think that's, that becomes very important to have people on your team who are good communicators. And again, if you come up with one background and one skill set, that may not be your strong suit, but that doesn't mean that it's any less valuable, right? So I think trying to make sure that your team does have that diversity of thought and skill set and the ability to do all of the things from the nuts and bolts to the communicating with leadership.
I've seen you in another role, and that is coaching. When you think about helping more women grow and nurture and gain confidence in cybersecurity, what are some of the things that you suggest?
The first advice I always give to women is obviously we are who we are, and that's core, and that's our superpower, as well as it is something that may create obstacles. First and foremost is say yes to everything. I love when people just jump in face first. They get involved in things. They don't hold themselves back. There may be a tendency at times to be perfectionistic, and so to kind of take that out of it, speak up. Use your voice, show people that you have something to contribute. We tend to fall back when we hear people overtalk, and there is a lot of overtalking at times in this industry. When you have something to say, to speak up. And if I have women on my team or just in the room that I know are incredibly versed in a subject, I'm going to make sure they have a voice, and I will say, so-and-so can speak better to that, or what do you think about this? And try to make sure that they understand that there's a reason why they're in the room. I don't like all the conversations around imposter syndrome. Yes, it exists for everyone, but it's become a female, if we're going to segregate a little bit too far in one extreme, it's become a problem for women to identify more with imposter syndrome than men. I don't agree with it. I don't think that is specific to women or those who identify as women. So I think it's really important that we just, we have a voice, we have people that we can look up to that advocate for us. But to Guy's earlier point, to be an ally and an advocate in this industry is so important. And Steve, you've been a perfect example of that for me. You have fostered and started conversations. You have never put me in a position where you diminish any aspect of who I am or what I do, but you have made sure that I've had introductions and a voice in certain circles to communicate that, whereas that may not have been possible otherwise. And that is such a huge part of what we do, is to just be in the room, have the conversation, and advocate for each other. Cultivating other women, that's always going to be my goal, is get out there, make those relationships, start those conversations, educate yourself, be valuable in the space, and the rest will come. It will come hard and it will come slower, but it will come.
Would you have any recommendation if I'm starting as a woman somewhere, considering security, and I'm trying to think, well, where should I go? Because security is so wide nowadays. Yeah, I still know it's a man's world. I know it's a bit technical, but I've seen some women like yourself succeed. Looking back, you could say, well, go into one area, get the best as you can, go wide and build your network or whatever. What would be your recommendations to anybody starting?
Yeah, I think for anyone, the network is everything. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn for that purpose, to connect with people that are having the conversations that you want to be a part of or at least learn from. I would recommend that for anyone in the industry. Outside of that, the advice I always give is think about how you want to spend your days. Right? In different technical roles, you may spend your day sitting behind a computer, and some people love that. Right? You've got your cat, you've got your coffee, you've got your computer, and you're doing your thing, listening to classical music or whatever, your jam is. There are other people like myself that would be painful to just sit in front of a computer all day. So think about how you want to spend your time. Do you like to be in front of people? Do you like to teach? Do you like to have that quiet time, that research where you just go down a rabbit hole? Do you love to learn about a whole bunch of different kinds of things and then walk it backward? For me, being obviously a very curious person, but also wanting to be challenged a lot, but also wanting to interact with people and leadership and help them, it was natural for me to go into a position where I could have these conversations and I could debrief people and help educate them on how they played with the digital world and how cyber affected them, and then shape the company. Right, to make sure that my company was getting the benefit of all these conversations that I was having on a daily basis. So again, if you reverse engineer where you want to see yourself, then you kind of walk back into a role that you can kind of follow a path on. But for me, it was really, how do I envision spending my time? As Steve can attest, a lot of times we are traveling, we are out until 2 a.m. some nights during conference season, entertaining and meeting people. If I didn't like that, I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do it as well. So there's a part that you have to like what you do. And so envisioning what your day looks like is a really big part of that, I think.
I just want to get your comment on the following. I have had female colleagues in different directions. I feel like that's why I was pursuing the ambition to have one in every department. That there should not be, there should be the specialist female network engineer. There was a specialized incident responder and so on. Yeah, I think people have to see that everything is possible. That was my goal. There's no, all the women are in that department, but they're not in that department. I want to show that every department can have it. And I think the first female member of my team in the early 2000s, who was a British woman, she was an incident response person, and she was a hunter. She was not great at doing preventive work, but I could call her at 3 a.m. in the morning, and adrenaline would go up, and she would try to find what's the problem here, who is trying to break in. And so let me take care of that. So I think it's a kind of, you can find it in every area. And I think we have to show role models in, whether it's cloud security, or whether it's web application security. We, for example, none of us may know a female pen tester. I don't know, but maybe there are. I feel that somewhere in us, as an activist, which I taking the role here, I feel that we have to make sure that we have a role model in every single discipline in cybersecurity, just to show the point, it can be done, it's doable. It may not be easy, but it's doable, and it breaks all the simplistic stereotypes or which we may have. So that's my view. I'm not sure you agree with that. But,
I think, representation is always very important, to have someone to look to. I think that when I'm having these conversations with those that identify as men in particular, it's a tough conversation if you don't clarify, the boundaries for it or the guardrails for it. We want more women in the industry, but it's not because we want to be fair and balanced. I mean, yes, equity is a wonderful, beautiful thing, but we want more because we've seen that they add value and they add it from a different perspective. And the way, people think and interact, that diversity of thought on the team is a value add for every single member of the team. It makes people elevate their game. It challenges us maybe step back from how we were trained and look at things in a new way. And so to have those conversations with the people on your team that maybe are thinking that diversity and inclusion and all of those things are just fluffy snowflake buzzwords, that they're not. They're a way to actually make the team better. Yeah, you have to be willing to look outside of that template that you think is what makes a corporate security professional or a pen tester. Like, look outside of the box, both in how they look on the outside as well as how they got there and their education.
I will throw something sideways in the discussion here to make it a bit controversial on purpose. When I look at men, we're the bigger teams, we recruit many, we have seen who does well or not. My observation was that to a large statistical degree, not subjective, for example, married men were doing better in security than not married men. And that's my observation. So I was wondering, why is that so? Why is that such a difference? Because the job can take a lot of your time. Then finally, my first conviction was that, maybe married women could be the same argument. When you're married, you have children or your family, and you cannot fail whatever happens. Even there's accidents, you have still to recover from it. Yeah, you have to show the way. And I think that's what we do in security on a daily basis. And I felt always that married men were doing that naturally, I should say, because that's what they had to do privately. That's just to make the mix of the discussion a bit wider. I'm sure it will be true also for married women, but so there is an interesting gender or conditional aspects to what makes you a better manager or better security person.
Yeah, failure is not an option when you have a lot of people counting on you, whether it be your team or your home team. And I think that people that have families are natural protectors. You are used to being a little bit of a mama bear or papa bear about being protective. And so security and protection tend to go hand in hand, even if it's a cyber leaning protection.
Educating and more and more.
And it's staying that thirst for knowledge, right? Staying on top of things as they come. And there's always a new threat, and there's always a new scam, and there's always a new technology. So to being able to just participate and roll with that and stay on top of it, it takes a certain kind of individual.
I'd like to comment, Guy, on a little bit more on diversity. There's also diversity, Stefanie, as you know, in your company, diversity in the sense of the type of work that people do, right? So there's all these specialties, if you will, and skills that are needed. And I think if you're a young person today, or someone who's thinking about a career change and getting into cybersecurity, your initial thought may be, as mine was, I'm not a techie. Guy is a techie. Guy can build stuff and take it apart and put it back together. I'm not that kind of person. There's certain other things I'm pretty good at in cybersecurity, but my encouragement would be to really take a look at it and not be dissuaded by the fact that you may feel, I don't have technical skills, because there's so many other facets to successful information security programs. Go in with your eyes open. Could you comment on that, Stefanie?
No, I agree with you. There are many roles. I always tell the story that when we hire new people, my first question is what is your superpower? Because we build a small, agile team. So when people come in, I know that we've brought them in because we want a new capability or we want to expand on a capability. So I think that being able to envision yourself as being a part of a team of superheroes where, my superpower is unique to me, right? I build relationships, I make friends, I see opportunities, I'm a communicator, I'm a connector. There are other people on my team that their superpower is they can find the needle in the haystack. They can see a program from a 30,000 foot view and build it and know exactly what that person needs to implement and to break it down into steps. There's so many roles that if you just kind of let yourself, again, lean toward your passion, then I think you'll find where your space is and where your superpower is. And if you're in a space now that that's very difficult to do, or you found yourself limited by management or whatever, which we've all been there, then that's the part for you to start thinking, like, maybe this isn't a growth space for me. Maybe this was a good learning experience, but maybe it's not a permanent home for me. Maybe this was just a place where I kind of got a taste of something. And maybe I'm going to need to pivot to be able to grow into, like you said, Steve, a role that is more suited toward you, where you can be passionate about it.
I think we could go on for a little while, talking, getting deeper and deeper. We already spent half an hour, so it's a very fascinating topic, and I really hope that we could inspire some to get in the field. If you want to know more about Stefanie or Stevan, also look at the show notes. We have more we can share on our channel, and as Stefanie has her own channel, you can see her also reviewing the weekly news, which is quite a job. And I think how many episodes did you produce? I think it's an incredible high number.
I think just the weekly ones, not the interviews, we're up to like 195. But yeah, it's become
almost
difficult.
200, almost 200 there. Yeah. So it takes enormous determination and perseverance, and we're at the beginning of our channel, so you deserve all the respect for that
Yeah, you're
achievement.
very sweet.
Please continue, and hope to see you back on different topics, and please look at the executive data protection video we made a few days ago. I think it's a very interesting field, and you can see what Prescient, the company Stefanie is working for, has developed, I think, a very unique and useful product. So thank you very much, Stefanie, for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks, Stevan, for having shared your insights. And also, we've done a few videos with you, so we'll put those in the show notes. And I think we'll put also the reference for Stefanie's own videos and the YouTube channels in the show notes. So again, to all of you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.